everybody. It's Ian the Off Kilter Crafter.
And I'm so Becca.
And spoiler alert,
I don't have one.
I don't have one either.
Oh, spoiler alert. You saw this quilt on the last podcast.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. But that's okay because I love it. And it's in a different phase of completion this time. So I'm not going to talk tons about this quilt, but I will tell you that I serged and squared the edges, and I'm hoping to have binding done within the next month.
So maybe by the next time
We'll see.
we do the podcast
We'll
together.
For those of you that weren't here last podcast episode, this is the chandelier quilt. It's a free pattern from Lala Boutique. It used to be a paid pattern. I bought it, and now it's free, so that's how that worked out. And it's sourced with some boutiques that I bought while we were at the lake.
Yep, some really pretty boutiques, too.
Thank you. And I have a thread that I didn't tie off right here.
I see that.
I'm just you're going to see me periodically be like, "Grr." So if you see me doing this, you'll know what I'm playing with. Yeah. And I'm not going to pull it, even though that's what I want to do. I want to be like, "Grr."
No, don't do that.
Okay, I won't.
My quilt is when I was the president of the Fort Worth Modern Quilt Guild, we had a quilt challenge every year, and the president came up with the challenge. And so I picked a pattern and said to use your scraps to make this. So all the different pluses on the quilts are made out of scrap fabric that I happen to have laying around. And I made this one.
It's interesting that you said pluses because I see satellites.
Oh, yeah, I could see that too. I could definitely see that. But I wanted to do rainbow. So each one has like a color family, and then they all have a piece of the rainbow fabric in it as well. So, and then the bindings, rainbow as well.
What's on the back?
The back is Tula.
Oh, what is that?
That is Pinkerville.
Oh,
I think it's Pinkerville.
very cool.
Yep. It was actually right when Pinkerville came out, and that's when I started to get familiar with her. But
Can I just ask a very honest question?
Sure.
Do you own a single quilt that does not have a piece of Tula in it?
Yes. Yes, I do.
I don't believe you.
I do. I do indeed. My Halloween quilt that doesn't have Tula in it.
Were you thinking about Tula while you were doing it?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
No. Oh, I made balloons on the screen.
Tula makes balloons.
Apparently. And then also some of the cotton cuts, not all of them, because some of them were Tula pink, but some of them, like the Halloween one, Village Green, that is all art gallery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do make quilts without Tula. I know it's hard to believe.
It is. Because you're like, this is my rainbow quilt. And then you were like, on
Tula.
the back, Tula.
Yep. I do. But, I'm looking at this and I don't have any Tula on the front side. I don't think it's all. I don't think there's any Tula there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
So what are we talking about today, buddy?
Feedback.
Oh.
No.
Positive, negative, all types. What?
Constructive, not constructive.
Oh, yeah.
All of the feedback.
All of the feedback.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting topic because, yes, it definitely plays into the quilting world, but this is also something that can kind of transform or cross over into your personal life or your work life too.
Absolutely.
And I feel like this is an area that the better I've gotten at receiving constructive feedback, the further I'm able to go in my career.
Absolutely.
So
I think so. Starting off, I think a lot of times people think of feedback coming back from quilt shows, notes that judges are giving from quilt shows. And we've talked about notes many times here on our podcast before. But, one thing that we talk about each time we talk about that feedback is, everybody has their own personal opinion.
yeah.
And it's going to vary from person to person about feedback and what that feedback looks like and what they feel is constructive criticism versus just criticizing.
Well, and I think there really is a formula too for how you're supposed to do that. What I've learned is you start with positives and then you give a suggestion for growth, not necessarily, or a critique, right? And so it just makes it balances it a little bit better too. But yeah, the notes, I got to be honest with you, I've only received notes from like one quilt show, maybe two, and they were super, super vague. So there was nothing in there that I felt like was any sort of feedback.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking about feedback on quilts or quilting, I'm going to tell you right off, I immediately go to YouTube. Like, I feel like the feedback that I can talk about, other than my professional life and my personal life, if we're talking about quilting, it's always the feedback that I get from the viewers. And most of it, 99% of it, is positive, but you always have that 0.5% that are either just angry with life or whatever, or maybe they didn't intend for it to come out the way it did, but the tone got lost in the words. And even with those, I just try to tell myself, and sometimes it's hard, but I try to tell myself that they meant well.
Yeah.
It came from, so
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you hit on what makes good constructive feedback is not being vague. So if somebody's asking for constructive feedback, being, taking a look at a block and saying, "Oh, I like that block." Like, that's not good constructive feedback. That
doesn't give you anything to act on.
Exactly. There's nothing to go off of. But if you respond back with, "Oh, I really like the way that you use the blue fabric to highlight the yellow fabric," I'm making something up. But if you get specific and explain why you like that block or why that is working to your liking, that is so much more valuable feedback versus, "Oh, I don't like that." Like, okay, great. What don't you like about it? So I think it's being specific in what makes it good, what makes it not work, what all it's about.
Otherwise, you're just saying something to say something.
Exactly.
I remember you told me, this was a couple years ago, you had a quilt. I think it was actually the one that you have hanging on your wall right now. You had a quilt entered into a quilt show, and the notes on it were like, "Binding is full." And you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So even though, like, maybe another part of that is, even though in your mind that feedback means something to you, the audience or who you're delivering it to might not know what you mean.
Absolutely.
So boiling it down a little bit, so it's not so it has what you're conveying what it is you're trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And apparently, sorry, I'm looking over at the screen. If you're listening on the podcast, we're looking at our monitor, and now and again, my computer is saying like, "Oh, I'm making a thumbs up gesture." I'm just going to hide my hands under the quilt.
You can turn that off.
I know, and it's funny to me sometimes.
Okay,
but
well, I'm just going to put my feet up since we got balloons.
Perfect.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. But so, yeah, I think you're right. On this quilt, I've received feedback that goes in completely two different directions. One said that they loved the binding. The other one said they hated the binding.
Right. And that is so hilarious to me, because that definitely kind of reeks of, it was opinion, not fact, right? I loved math when I was in school. It was my favorite subject. And part of the reason why I loved math so much is because there was always one right answer.
Yeah.
2 + 2 is always going to be 4. 3 + 2 is always going to be 5. And so there was no defending. It was not an opinion. It was not a position. It was fact-based, right? So that was so easy for me. It was really easy to grasp. I loved that. But quilting, even, I know there are things where people are like, "No, these are the rules. This is blah, 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 blah." But then you get feedback like you had, where it's just on completely two ends of the scale. Well, if there's only one right answer and there's only one rule, then how come person A said it was okay and person B said it wasn't?
Right. And then you have the people that are like, "There's only one way to do something in quilting." And they demand that you only do it that specific way. And it's like, no, that's There are no quilt police.
Well, there are. That's the problem.
There are people who think they're the quilt police.
Yeah. Defund the quilt police,
right,
please.
Exactly.
No, there are. And those are like that. I'm going to say something, and this might strike a nerve with a few folks. It's not meant to single anybody out. I know I do it too, and I'm sure you do. But the intention of what we're trying to give isn't always what is heard, right? So, for example, I'm going to use Mary as an example. I've talked about this before. When I put my borders on my quilts, I have always just grabbed a piece of fabric that is the length or longer, sewn it onto the side, and then just trimmed off the edge. And as long as I'm not stretching or pulling on any of the fabric, it's perfect, right? As long as I'm letting the feed dogs do the work, I never really have an issue. That's not how she does borders. And she's talked about this. She's been very vocal about it. She does it the way that she was taught. And that is, for those of you that are listening, she finds the center of the edge of her quilt and the center of her border. She makes sure that the border piece that she's putting onto the quilt is the exact measurement of the length or the width. And then she pins from the middle out to the left and then the middle out to the right and then sews. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can absolutely do that. Will it get you flatter, more square results? Maybe. I'm not going to say yes or no on that, but it's not. I mean, I have successfully secured borders to quilts without doing that, and the quilt still works just fine. But the reason why I bring that up is because she's so passionate about wanting to help, and she wants you to understand what she knows, and she wants to share her knowledge with you. It's not coming from a malevolent place. It is very much a place of love.
Yes.
But when you're doing something and somebody comes to you and says, that's not how I do it blah, 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 your advice was not sought. Nobody asked you for that. And you are now coming over and telling me how to do something. That does give quilt police vibes.
It does.
And I don't think people realize that even though you are not normally somebody that they would call quilt police, the act of offering advice or telling somebody a better way to do something kind of comes off a bit like quilt police.
It can, absolutely. It all depends on your relationship with that person and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it can absolutely come across that way. It can come across quilt-splaining.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Like, I knew where Mary was coming from when she did that. And it wasn't a place, like I said, it wasn't a malevolent place. It was a place of love. So I was able to receive it that way. But had I not known her, had that been the first time I ever interacted with her, I probably would have been like, you know what I mean?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
bye.
But I also know enough to know that she wouldn't have done that on the first day.
Right.
So it's difficult. I actually have, I have more feedback stories than I feel like I thought I had. When I first started quilting, I had a mid-arm. I think I had it already. I don't know. I don't remember at what point it was, but I remember my husband paid for me to take the handy quilter certification classes at the quilter studio so that I could rent time on the machine. I work full time. I had a small child at the time who is now, oh my goodness, going to be 15. When did that happen?
It's weird.
But all that to say, the only time that I could get up there, the only time available in my calendar to get up there was really Saturdays and some Sundays after church. And then when you take those 52 Saturdays and maybe, let's be generous, 26 Sundays a year that I could potentially go up there and carve out holidays and other plans that we have for weekends, that really boils it down to maybe a couple of times a year that I'd be able to get up there and actually work on a quilt on the long arm. And so what that means is I took the certification class. I did my first quilt, and then about 6 or 8 months went by before I
Mhm.
could do the next one.
Mhm.
And when I went, I couldn't remember anything. I
Yeah.
didn't remember how to load it. I couldn't remember how to pin to the leaders. I remembered nothing. And I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated with myself because I showed up. I pinned the quilt to the leaders. My back hurt because I was standing doing this. I only had a 4-hour block. And so I had to show up. I spent a whole hour of my reserved time pinning the quilt to my leaders that
Yeah.
I could have done at home, only to find out that I had pinned it upside down.
Oh no.
Yep. And so I was so frustrated. I wanted to leave and just be done. And one of the ladies that worked there, she still works there. She was like, no. Just go back and repin it. Sit down while you're pinning. It'll be okay. And so I did. Took a breath, had a glass of water, got back to the long arm, and I'm quilting. I'm not very far into the quilt, and I got through like a bobbin, or maybe I had a thread break. I don't remember what it was, but I remember that whatever happened, I needed to tie off again.
Mhm.
And I didn't really know how to do that.
Yeah.
So one of the staff came up to me and she was like, "Oh, may I show you the right way to do that?" And those were her words.
Mhm.
And in the like I felt like I had to say yes because it was her machine.
Right.
Right? It was the store's machine, but also at the same time, I did not want feedback. I was done with feedback. I just want I was happy to just scribble all over the quilt to get it done. I was done. I was
Yeah.
not in the mood to receive. And so I say all of that to also share that sometimes, even if there is a relationship, if you ask somebody if they want your feedback, just because they say yes, they might not. Read the room, people.
Definitely. I remember as an educator, so I worked at a public library system.
Yeah.
And I worked in the maker space, and we had 3D printers and robots and all the maker STEM activities and stuff like that. And I actually built the training for how to use the 3D printers and how to teach people how to use the 3D printers. And with 3D printing, you are dealing with expensive machinery. You're dealing with people who may have never used this type of technology or tool before. You're dealing with age ranges from very young all the way up to adult.
Mhm.
And I had to modify what I was doing and how I was teaching per my audience. I had to pay attention to
Yeah.
that audience and figure out, okay, how tactfully am I going to target that audience and everything. And one of the biggest things that we wanted to emphasize in the training is guiding from the side. And I think that is such an important thing to do when you're working with somebody, because you don't want to just take something over and shove the
right.
person out of the way,
That's
right?
That's right.
And I learn best when I'm actually doing.
Absolutely.
When I'm doing and actually implementing what I need to be learning or something like that. So we really wanted to emphasize guide from the side, and I even put little demos in. I had one of my coworkers pretend to be the participant, and I would they would tell me what color they wanted, and so I would shove them out of the way and work on it. Move out of the way. And then we did it again. We're like, no, that's wrong. Don't do that. And then we showed it again, but how can you guide from the side? And first of all, I was having to keep their hands occupied because I didn't want them reaching into the 3D printer. So I would actually have them hold on to the filament. So that kept their hands busy and they wouldn't want to reach in. But that's another story. But guide from the side was really important to me because it allowed me to be hands off, where they're the ones actually stepping through what needed to happen. They're building the muscle memory to remember how to do it. But I'm giving them feedback as they're going through it. Maybe they click the wrong place, or maybe they're needing help remembering the size of objects. And so we would have little math lesson of, okay, scale up, scale down, all this kind of stuff. But it was a way to engage them without, it was giving feedback and learning, but it almost tricked them into it, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I did take a few college courses on education. When I started going back to college, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. That was my thing. And I got about 30 credits in. I had taken my core classes and a bunch of the required elementary education, primary education classes. I wanted to be an elementary teacher. And I got to the point where I had to go and audit a classroom for a week as part of one of the classes. And I thought mistakenly that the easiest one, because I was babysitting, the easiest one for me to do would be the kindergarten classroom.
Nope.
Wrong answer. Like, these kids are still learning how to respect a classroom environment. They are wild. You're not teaching anything hard. What you're teaching is discipline.
Yeah.
Right. You're teaching the classroom setting. So it's, yeah. I was so, literally, I left that semester, that class, and I changed my major. So I have some very, very little background in education, but I feel like I have a natural knack for being able to teach. And one of the things, there are two things that I feel like make me strong there. The first one is tailoring to your audience, which you've already mentioned.
Yep.
But then the second one is also guiding from the side, right? And I didn't even know that there was a term for that.
Yeah.
Like, I had no clue. I just know that, and as you were saying this, I was like, oh, I can picture myself saying it. I learn better when I do, right? So walk me through it so I can do. And so I apply that forward when I'm teaching somebody how to do how to work on something.
Yeah.
And as we're going through whatever it is that I'm teaching, I'm also gauging what your frustration level is, because there's going to be required feedback, like, don't put your hands into the laser. And then there's going to be, oh, well, you held that with your left hand. You could really hold it with your right hand. Something that is minor. So I'm constantly trying to gauge whether or not they're receptive to both, right? One of them they have to have, and the other one is just a helpful bonus tip.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun. I loved working in the museum setting because, first of all, I'm a nerd for science. I actually did the calculations because I didn't realize how long I had actually worked in the science museum field. I worked in it for over 19 years.
Wow.
I was surprised.
You're old.
I know. I am. But it surprised me because I literally started in the museums. That was my first job. Science museum was my first job at 16. So it was a long time that I worked in the science industry or science museum industry. And what I remember, like, a lot of my bosses were very impressed with how I could take concepts and break them down into smaller digestible pieces for a wide range at the same time.
Yep.
So again, I'm dealing with adults to young children all in the same moment.
Yep.
How can I break that information down so that the adults aren't getting bored,
Yep.
but also the kids can understand it? It's never dumbing down. You never dumb down the information. You're just breaking it into those smaller, more digestible pieces to, why is my TV turning off now suddenly? It's weird. I don't understand.
Well, we know the computer's still running, so we don't care.
So it's fine. Yay! Anywho, but it's about breaking those pieces down so that way they can digest them and understand them without going over their heads or making sure that they stay
You're just meeting them where they need to be, right?
Exactly.
Right. Like so I am a firm believer when I'm trying to teach or coach somebody that I need to figure out where they are and I'm going to meet them there.
Yep.
Right. So in a classroom setting, I know I'm going to have people that are down here and people that are up here.
Yep.
And so usually within the first little bit, I know who my go-getters are
Yeah.
and who are the ones that are going to need a little extra hand-holding. And I have learned that the way I provide that instruction, which isn't necessarily feedback, but the way I provide that instruction is I show the whole group, and I know there are going to be some people that are going to go back and be like, boom, I got it. And not only did I get it, I found a better way.
Right.
Great. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Love that for you. Not upset, but your friend is struggling and I'm only one person.
Mhm.
So could you help your friend?
Yes.
Right? Like help them walk through it, and I'll come by if you still need questions, and I will be there, but it's really meeting them where they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also like when you do that, when you're like, hey, I'm overwhelmed. Can you help your friend?
That's teaching them
Exactly.
still, because I feel like, and this is one of the reasons why I love teaching and I get so passionate about sharing knowledge. One of the ways that locks it here is by sharing it with you.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the concepts that I use quite frequently in my daytime job is how can I get them to regurgitate that information and provide it back, because that loop is going to continue that growth and
That's
that
right.
understanding of whatever we're working on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can we do one thing though?
Yeah.
Can we get rid of I'm going to say a 4-letter word. Can we get rid of the shit sandwich?
The what?
The shit sandwich.
What is that?
That is a compliment, a negative, and a compliment.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing.
That is a thing. It is a thing, and it is the worst type of feedback system there is.
Give me an example.
So, for instance, if you were working on a quilt, and I could be like, oh, I really love that border color. That is so great. I love it. I don't like that you used blue in the center of your quilt, but the green next to it is amazing. That is not a good way to give feedback.
All I took away from that is you don't like my quilt.
Exactly.
And you were just trying to find some things to throw out there.
Right.
You're
right.
just like, oh, well.
Yeah, and it seems to be the go-to feedback method of compliment, negative, compliment.
Huh.
And it is not a good way to do feedback. So a lot of times when I'm giving feedback, I have gotten rid of the shit sandwich and have gone to, I of course want to compliment what I like, but I'm not going to sandwich it in between, or I'm not going to put the negative in between it. I'm going to be honest, not mean, not negative, but I'm going to say like, hey, I don't think that this was accomplished very well for this reason. I actually think, maybe you should do this. And that sounds terrible, but I'm trying to make things off the top of my head. And it's hard.
No. I hear you. I get it. I get it. It's getting directly to the point instead of beating around the bush, right? Because if you know that I'm thinking of feedback in two different senses, right? There's the feedback where you're like, hey, I want your opinion. Could you tell me something? In that case, I want the honest thing. Don't beef it up, bluff it up with something or blow smoke up my butt. Just tell me yes or no. Did it work or did it not work?
Yep.
But then there's the other one where you're getting constructive feedback in like a work environment, right? Where you get your quarterly check-ins or your annual review. And in those, sometimes I find showing strengths is always, like talking about somebody's strengths is always good, especially if I have to talk about an area of opportunity.
Sure.
But that's different, right? Like that's feedback around who you are and how you're performing your job versus your creative decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I hate when people sugarcoat things. And I feel like when you get into that compliment, negative compliment, that's sugarcoating.
Yeah.
And to me, it's disingenuous because you're having to find something to, kind of bookend that negative. And I think it almost is worse because you may be complimenting something that you don't really like after all.
Yeah. And now I'm automatically going back to think about how many times have I said, "Oh, I like it. It looks great," when I'm like, "No."
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like it forces you to find things that you may not have originally complimented or may not even like to begin with.
Yeah.
So I think in our society, I don't know why, that's the natural form of feedback that happens. And I think, a lot of people should break away from that and go with more honest feedback. I'm not saying be mean. Again, this whole
Right.
episode, we're not saying be mean, be negative, but like you don't have to compliment things if you don't like them or whatever.
Or you can just leave it generic,
Yeah.
right? If you don't like the quilt, you don't have, and you're asked, you don't have to say, "I don't like it." You can just say, "Oh, it's great," right? Like, and that's it. That's it. Give the positive and leave the negative out of it.
Mhm.
You didn't need to come in there. When you were talking about that sandwiching,
Mhm.
immediately I thought, my mom and I talk about this all the time. Actually, my sisters and I give my mom crap about it because the way she apologizes is not an apology. And we
Mhm.
tell her this all the time. So, for instance, she may say something and your feelings might get hurt, right? And her apology for that, and I'm making this up, she's not saying things to hurt people's feelings,
Right.
but if she did, her apology would be, "I'm sorry your feelings were hurt."
Yeah.
And you're just like, "No, you're not.
Right.
No, you're sorry that I'm mad at you.
Mhm.
You're sorry that I'm reacting. You're sorry that you got caught." Whatever it is,
Right.
you're not sorry for your action. And that, like, we've tried telling her so many times, they're like, "Mom, a real apology would have just been, 'I'm sorry,'
Mhm.
period. Or 'I'm sorry that I hurt you,'
Mhm.
or 'I'm sorry for my words.' You got to take some accountability." Instead, you're like, "I'm sorry your feelings are hurt." Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry. Kind of feedback, but kind of not.
I mean, it falls under it a little bit, I feel like. But yeah, there's definitely, and I definitely have had to retool my brain a little bit
Yeah.
sometimes, and say things like, if I really didn't mean to hurt somebody's feelings or something like that, say something to the effect of, I really apologize that what I said was what did I normally say? I'm trying to like think here on the spot, and it's like my brain I'm ready for nap time apparently.
Well, we did have ice cream before.
We did.
And it was
We
so
did have
good.
ice cream.
I have been, while you're thinking of
Yeah.
that, I have been for the past week, ice cream, ice cream, like a heartbeat, ice cream, ice cream. And I've not had it. I've driven past the ice cream depot coming home, and I'm like, should I just stop? No. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today we got Cold Stone
We did.
in a waffle bowl.
It was so good. It was so good.
And my go-to, just so everybody out there wants to know, sweet cream base with caramel topping, mixed in coconut, almond slices, and chocolate shavings.
Sounds so good. So good.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good. I'm ready to have it again. Anyway.
No, it's I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. That wasn't my intention.
Oh yeah, that is perfectly valid
Yeah.
too. Yeah, I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention.
Mhm.
I'm sorry that that is completely appropriate.
Yeah.
But I think somewhere just in the evolution of my family's
Mhm.
communication strategy, that's what she means when
Mhm.
she's like, "I'm sorry your feelings are hurt." What she really means is, "I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm sorry."
Yep.
Right? Like, I was being honest. I gave you my feedback. I'm not sorry that I feel this way. I'm not sorry for my feedback, but I didn't want to hurt you. Right?
Mhm.
Like that's what she means.
Yeah.
And we've just learned to love her for it.
Well, I definitely had to retool because I was brutally honest as a younger.
No.
You can't do
That's
that.
the neurodivergent, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
that is the
yeah.
neurodivergent in me because I would, people would ask for feedback, and it's taken me a long time to realize sometimes they don't really want your feedback at all.
No.
They don't want what you...
They want validation.
They want validation. They
Yes.
want validation. They want... Yeah. So it's taken me a while to realize and like hear the audio and visual cues of, okay, is this person actually asking for feedback or are they asking for validation? Like, and sometimes also I'm having to do that thing where somebody will come to me with like a problem or they'll kind of dump on me and I'll have to ask, okay, do you want advice?
How many times have I done that?
A lot. But it's something that I've learned to do that's really good because, you know, you want to jump in and solve the problem for me.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes I'm just venting or
Yep.
I'm just dumping.
Yep.
And so, you know, we've built up this relationship where you'll almost jump into wanting to solve the problem and then you'll be like, wait, do you want advice? Do you want help? Or do you want a shoulder to cry on?
Yep.
And it kind of is nice to be able to be like, and sometimes I don't even know what I want. And
Yep.
so when you ask that question to me, I stop and I go, what do I want? Oh, I just want to vent right now.
Yeah,
like
yep,
I
yep.
just want to be able to vent and I get that out and then everything's great.
My sister does that. So Alicia will text me and she knows that about me. I am a people pleaser and I am a problem solver. And I want to do, like, if you're upset, I want to help you fix the problem. Even if I don't want to help you fix the problem and I want to do something else, I will feel like I have to fix the problem. So it's always good to have that level of expectation set up front. So the feedback for me with Alicia happens at the front of the conversation. And so there will be some times where she'll call me or she'll text me and she'll just be like, I need to vent. And so I realize that from that point on, I'm just listening.
Yep.
I'm just listening. And I've gotten comfortable with a type of feedback that you never thought was really feedback, but it's this. Literally just being quiet and providing the space for somebody else to process. That's it.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
doing it in a way where they know that you are paying attention to them, right? Like I wouldn't pick up my phone and start scrolling and be like, oh yeah, you know, like exactly. I want to give you eye contact. I want to hear what you're saying. And I just want to nod, give you give you body clues, body language. It shows that I'm listening to you and give you the space to process whatever you need to process.
Yep. And a lot of times you audio process things.
Oh my gosh.
Because we talk about stuff all the time. And
all the time.
Like, I sit there and it's taken me a moment to realize, but like, as we've gotten to know each other more, you start dumping out.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, she's audio processing. Yep. I'm going to let her audio process and I'm just going to sit here and nod my head and say, yep.
And then when I'm ready for, I will end it with, I will usually get to a point where I'll start asking questions, but I know that sometimes those questions are just for me. So I'll throw them out there and I know whoever's listening to me can probably feel a little confused, right? Because I'll be like, I don't know if I should use that color. And I'm just having an audio conversation with myself. So I'm not asking you for your opinion. I'm just talking to myself.
Yep.
So no, yeah, that's something that I never knew. I didn't realize. I think I knew it about myself, but I didn't know it about myself until you pointed it out.
Yeah.
And so hearing that from you has been actually effective in my own life because I have been able to take that forward and explain what my expectations are. So when I'm upset with a situation that I want to talk to my husband about, right? I can start that with, I just need to verbally process. I just need to word vomit and then word vomit. And then when I'm done, I can be done. Whereas before, without that disclaimer at the front, he feels like when I'm talking and sharing these words with him and I'm upset and I'm passionate and I'm emotional, that it's directed at him.
Right.
And it really isn't. I'm just feeling a certain kind of way about the situation. And he is my go-to and I want to share it with him.
Yeah.
Right. Like I just want to get it off of my chest and share it with somebody.
Yep. It's also funny though, sometimes because you will throw those questions out and you're intending them for you and nobody else. And I'll answer them anyways. And sometimes it'll snap you out,
Yeah.
and you'll come back and you'll be like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Or like, there's been a few times that a lot of times you do continue down that road and path and everything, but there have been a couple of times that you kind of go, oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. We've gotten way far away from quilting.
This has been Becca Therapy 101. Right. But it's all good feedback. Like, it all kind of it's not just feedback, I don't think. I feel like we said we were talking about feedback, but really, ultimately, what we're talking about here is just communication, right? Definitely. It's more than just, I asked you for your opinion, your advice. It's how you're talking to other people. Yeah, I just think it all boils down to communication. And I feel like the more you get to know somebody, the more you understand what their communication styles are. Yeah. I'll tell you one of the things I never thought I would be sitting here saying. So I did not like public speaking, and you wouldn't know that now to know me now. But even just 5 or 7, well, maybe more than 5, like mid 2000s, so maybe like 10 years ago. Yeah. I would have a hard time speaking in front of a group, whether it was on a camera or in front of a group. I just didn't want to do it. If I knew you and it was a small couple of people, it was fine. But it was really difficult for me to speak in front of a group. Yeah. And I had to get over that for work because of some of the projects I was working on. I had to learn how to overcome that. And so I figured it out. And then I took the next step, which was speaking in front of the camera. That, like in my early videos, I would not be on camera because I didn't want people to see me, but that allowed me to get comfortable talking in front of the camera. Right. But I say all that to say, one of the things that I consistently get high marks on at work is my communication. I just have always thought that everybody can do this. If you listen, you can understand what somebody's trying to say. But there's a certain amount of empathy that can come when you take that empathy piece and the communication and you blend them together. You get almost like this superpower because you're not just hearing the literal words that are coming out of the mouth. You're understanding the intention and what the actual thing is, and you're able to put all that together and share it forward. Yeah. And so one of the things that I know I do well and I get high marks for is taking the techie speak from the developers and all of the folks that do the techie work and translating that into jargon that executives and non-techie folk can understand. And not just being able to explain like how you compile code and but more about why that's important and why they're so passionate about we can't skip this. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like absolutely. Being able to translate that between the two is a huge thing.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I don't like in communication is the seagull effect.
What's the seagull effect?
That is when you put out an idea and people poop all over it.
Have you had are you literally sitting on a whole bunch of little, because you've had shit sandwich, you have seagull. I feel like there's more nuggets. I'm just spinning on everything.
Well, it's funny because I actually did, when I was working at the library, I volunteered. We would have these like it wasn't mini tips. Like every other Friday or so, they would put out a guide or like little ways to make improvements. Micro tips or something of that, and it's just little ways that you can interact with people better, or better ways to go about doing things, or whatever. Just micro tips of some type. And they asked, I volunteered to do one of them. And so I created this whole list of feedback, because that was one thing that I noticed was feedback is hard. It is hard.
It is.
It is not an easy thing to do. And so I wanted to bring some micro tips on how to give and receive feedback. And so I wrote up a whole email on that. And
what are you've had shit sandwich, you've had seagull, whatever. Give us some other nuggets.
Well, those are the ones that I can remember. Those are the ones that I can remember off the top of my head. I should have pulled up that email because I think I still have it somewhere, maybe. But so the seagull effect, is a funny one. As soon as I heard it, I cracked up. It's an article from Trello that they did, and basically it's saying, you put out an idea out there, and then people start pooping all over it, and you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so it's a way of, I think it's 30, 50, 70, I think is what it is, and that's at those markers, that's when you're going to get certain types of feedback.
Oh.
So like at the 70 mark, you're not going to get basic feedback. You're not going to be getting feedback on, oh, this project is, terrible. We need to scrap it and start over. So at those intervals, you should be asking relevant information. So at the 30, that's when you can get basic information, basic feedback on a project. Does this work? Does it not work?
Right.
Whatever. 50, you're looking for more geared feedback on, okay, how is it going so far, or where is this project going, or what is it, we're not looking for, is the overall project good? It's more feedback on what in it is going well and what's or not well. And then 70 is really starting to wrap things up. You're not looking for feedback
Lessons
on
learned.
the whole.
This is what we would do different next time.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's going to be your more really targeted feedback, and not in a way that like completely erases everything that you've already done. But hey, we're wrapping up this project. We've got to move on and stuff like that. So yeah,
a couple times now when we've been talking through this, my husband has come to mind because I don't feel like he gives me shit sandwiches, but he is a seagull all day. And it's not necessarily poo-pooing on my idea. It's, let me give you an example. I could show him this lovely quilt that's on my lap, and I could say, what do you think of the quilt? And he'd be like, oh, it's really cool. I like the colors. Or, oh, I don't like it because of this. And then he'll be quiet for a minute. And then he'll come back and he'll say, but you know what would be cool? So actually, this is a true story. I made a bargello from a couple of jelly rolls that I had. I loved the fabric, and I gifted that bargello quilt to his sister for Christmas. After I pieced it, I was so proud of it. And I pulled him in. And this is an area where I wanted a certain type of feedback, and he didn't know that. I didn't set that expectation, so I just got him. I was like, what do you think? And he was like, it looks cool. But you know what would be better is if you use some brown and some aqua and some white, and you made it look like waves crashing on a beach. And I was like, like, could you just tell me that you like my quilt?
Well, and that's the perfect opportunity for the seagull effect, is because you were asking very, like, it was towards the end of the project. You were asking very vague.
It was
feedback.
At the end of the project.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I know.
Yep.
But I should have communicated my expectation that he was going to bow down and worship my wonderful piecing skills and tell me how I was an amazing quilter, and he had no idea how I did all that. Yeah, that's what I was expecting. But what I got was, it's all right. You should do it as a beach next time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good thing to hit on, is when asking for feedback, set that expectation. Set that expectation of what you're looking for in that feedback. Maybe not general feedback of this is great or this is horrible, but like very specific feedback in what it is.
I've also learned with him, instead of saying, what do you think? Which is very generic, and you're asking for him to, you're kind of opening the door, right? Yeah. I say, do you like it? Because then it's a yes or no question. It was a yes or no question, babe. You don't have to tell me, but yes or no. Yes or no.
I don't need a dissertation.
And spoiler alert, the correct answer is yes.
The answer is always yes.
It's always yes. It's always yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's just so funny. Like the ways No, I have nothing else to say about that. It's just, I am a firm believer that there's always room to grow.
Oh, absolutely.
And quite honestly, a year from now, I don't want to be where I am now. And I'm happy to say that who I am now is not who I was last year. I always want to continue to evolve. And at the core of that is communication,
Mm-hmm.
because I have to be willing and able to receive feedback and constructive criticism. But I want to talk a little bit about ways that we as YouTubers and putting ourselves out in the public are safeguarding ourselves from some of that feedback that could really hurt,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I said at the beginning of this, 99.9% of my comments are positive, and even the 0.01% or 0.1%, whatever, even that percent that's negative, I still look at as though it had good intentions, and I'm just misreading into it.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that, the keyboard warriors can come out a little bit, and that can hurt too. So how do you
Absolutely.
deal with that?
A lot of times I remind myself that I'm not going to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. There's no video or social media posts that I make that 100% of people are going to like.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That is A-okay. If we were all the same person, it would be a very boring world.
It sure would.
It would be very boring. So I remind myself that not everybody is going to like everything that I put out there, and that's fine. And, you know, I think we've talked on the channel before, like I had somebody comment that they were like, you say super cool or really like, or I said some phrase over and over again because it was one of my go-to words. And
don't you hate that?
I hate doing that. I really do, but it
you
happens.
don't even realize that you're doing it.
No, not at all. Not at all. And so it was super cool. That's what it was. I said super cool a lot in a video. And the comment underneath the video was like, you said super cool too much. Can you stop? And it was like, thank you for pointing that out. Delete comment. Like
I had one. This is going to turn into airing our dirty laundry in the comment section. I had a comment one time. Early on in my YouTube, I would read every single comment and I would take them all to heart. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn not to take them all that, like, I only reserve allowing people that are in my inner circle to give me feedback that
mm-hmm.
that could hurt. You know what I mean? Right. You can give it to me, but just because you're putting it out there doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily receive it.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was a comment that I had posted a video, and I was so proud of this video. I was proud of everything. Like, I was comfortable in front of the camera, and I was trying to make sure I was coming up with hooks at the beginning of the video to capture your attention. I was doing all the things, and I found myself saying, because I had heard other people saying it, I tend to pick up on phrases that I hear other people say.
Sure.
And Kara and Nate, mm-hmm. I would hear Nate say, if I'm being honest, mm-hmm. a lot, and then he would give his opinion. And that was kind of like the lead into, I'm going to give you my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's honest. That was really what it was. It was a verbal signal that that's where he was going.
Right.
And so I started leveraging that in some of my videos. And I'd be like, but if I'm being honest, I don't really like this. And I'll never forget, a viewer left a comment in one of my videos that said, or maybe she sent me an email, wherever it was, the feedback that I got was, you keep saying, if I'm being honest, and we're just expecting you to be honest. So when you say that, it makes it sound like you're being less than honest with us. And I was like, okay, but I allowed that mm-hmm. that to come in, mm-hmm. and it hurt mm-hmm. because I was giving that power out to everybody. And I realized, while like I just have to reserve the constructive feedback. The positive is always great, but that constructive feedback has to be limited to a core group of people.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Again, you're not going to make everybody happy.
You're not. I can tell you every single one of my live streams, without fail, I have 2 thumbs down. Always within the first hour of the live stream starting. So it's somebody that, which I think this is hilarious. I almost have to laugh at it because it's somebody that is coming to the channel. They are opening the video. They are watching the video. and they are clicking the thumbs down, but you are still watching.
Mhm. I don't understand. I don't. But hey, whatever. It's like seeing mean or rude comments on like TikTok or Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just like,
I think sometimes people are just trying to pick a fight there.
I feel like sometimes they are, because
Yeah.
you could just scroll.
Yeah.
You could just scroll.
Although I won't
I don't
lie, I'll go on Instagram or TikTok, and sometimes I will go to the comments to see what the drama is.
Yeah.
Like there's some reels and things that I've opened up, and I'll go over there and be like, not gonna lie, just here for the comments.
Right.
Like people are doing that. I'm just like, I just want to watch and see what y'all are saying.
Just get the popcorn.
Yeah, just be
sit
like,
there, read
I'm
the
not
comments.
partaking. I'm just reading.
Definitely.
Oh,
Yep.
so is your trick for feedback from your community, or I don't even want to say your community. I want to say like the public,
Mhm.
right? Like not your core group, not
Mhm.
your fan base, but like the people that you don't, and that's the thing. The negative comments that come up on videos, that feedback or those emails, they always seem to be tied back to somebody who we've never seen in the live chat, never seen comment before. It's almost like some random Joe happened across the video and they send you the email or they leave the comment.
Yeah. Yeah, which honestly helps me process that feedback more easily, because
Yeah.
I can be like, okay, they haven't been here before, or I haven't seen them before. And it weights their feedback for me. So I can be like, okay, they were probably having a bad day. They were not feeling good about whatever. It helps me kind of go process it and go, okay, they weren't happy with it. That sucks. Move on. Delete.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really kind of adds that. It automatically adds that weight into it of how much do I want to process this feedback and absorb it.
What's the hardest piece? What's the most difficult piece of feedback that you've gotten from being a YouTuber? Wanted or not wanted?
I think the hardest piece of feedback that I get is just when comments come about me, my personality, or me, like things that I can't change or don't want to change, because they're they're me. That's who I am. And so when I get comments on who I am, or
It's hard.
something like that, it can be pretty hard and pretty tough.
It's extra hard, and that's part of why I wanted to ask, because what I have navigated through, and I feel like I'm doing a better job with now, when you're selling yourself as a personality on YouTube, your brand is you, Ian, right? And so if somebody decides to unsubscribe or walk away forever or unhappy with something that you did, it's not about the quilts. It's at least it feels this way.
Right.
It doesn't always feel like it's about the quilts or the projects or the channel or the time that your live stream is. Sometimes it feels like an attack on you. It feels like they didn't like you as a person, and so now they've moved on and done this other thing. That's really hard.
It is. I've gotten comments that I'm too much on YouTube, and that they
I think you're just right.
Well, I think I am too.
I think you're just right.
But it can't. I can see how people would find it to be too much, and that's fine. That's totally fine. That is their opinion, and they are more than welcome to find another video or find somebody else on YouTube. That doesn't bother me. But
why can't you just move on to the next video instead of leaving that piece of feedback?
Right. Yeah.
Like think about what if somebody said that to you in person.
Right.
How would you react? Like what?
That's the funny thing is most people wouldn't say that to your face.
Just think about like if you were in line at the grocery store, and the person in front of you was wearing a purple shirt and you did not like it. Would you really go up to them and be like, "I'm leaving this store because I don't like your purple shirt"? No, you wouldn't. You just be like, that in your head, you'd be like, I hate that shirt. I would never wear it. And then you would move on about your day.
Yep.
But something about the anonymity, I can't even say the word, something about the anonymity, can't even still say it, of the internet.
Yeah.
It just gives you this power to be mean and hateful sometimes.
I wish we could break from that. Like, I really wish we could break from that. And like, I get it. You don't like it. That's fine. Move on.
Yeah.
Move on.
I've even noticed at work, in my professional job, I interact with a lot of people through the intranet, right? Like through Teams and things. And it's easier to deliver bad news or to be able to get somebody to do something that you need them to do if they have that face-to-face interaction with you once in a while. Like if I've only ever talked to them through Teams or through email, even if my video camera is on, there is not that personal relationship. And so you don't have that connection into them. But if you make time to attend a meeting with them in person, or just go out for coffee with them, or take them to lunch, or just sit and listen to them, there's something about physically being in their presence that helps them almost like you a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a tool, like that
It
person, that face-to-face, that in-person interaction and lack of has built a society that's just, it wasn't like this when I was a kid.
No.
Like,
No,
you were bullied
not.
to your face if you were bullied. You knew who your bully was because you were looking at him.
Yeah, it's true. It is a very different world for people growing up versus, or kids growing up right now. Oh gosh, I sound old. Get off my lawn. But like, no, it's definitely, and like we're two different generations. And so we definitely had different experiences, maybe similar, like veins of similarity between our experiences. But like, I remember the internet getting created and going through, like, I was there before and after, and I've seen it, how it interacts with kids today versus, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like.
No, you've seen it rise to where it is now. You saw it from birth to now. And now, like Zoe, God love her, she's going to kill me. But I can remember when she was a toddler, the only interaction that she ever had with devices, she had an iPad that we would let her watch like little Sesame Street videos and stuff on. And she knew to change it, she would touch the screen. She had figured that out. But she couldn't figure out why when she would touch the TV, nothing would happen. So she was just used to everything in her life being touchscreen.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's never lived without the internet.
Yep.
We have these talks all the time because in my head, I'm like, okay, 9th grade, your crew, you guys are you need to call people on the phone. Look, and I'm even doing like this, right? Like, you need to call people on the phone. You need to have friends come over. You need to have the sleepovers and stuff. And that's not how kids operate today.
No.
Instead, they have like Discord chats with all of them in there. And she's got her internet friends and her school friends. And then sometimes they blend together. And I'm just over here like, but do you have a friend?
Right.
Because to me, my generation, it's like, if you don't have that face to face.
I was talking about this with my Uber driver when I was going to the airport on my trip. We were talking about like people moving a lot. And as a kid, we were both millennials. And we were talking about as a kid, if somebody moved away, like, unless you wrote them a letter.
Oh, I know.
You never heard from them.
Oh, again. I know. Like, seriously, that is something I struggle with. And I think it's a generational thing. Plus, also, I moved a lot when I was younger.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, and I've talked with my mom about this. I've talked with my siblings about this. I think you and I have talked about it a little bit. I have gotten very comfortable with, okay, when I move, what I left behind is in the past and there's no looking back. We're going to look forward and we're going to focus on this. Right. Yep. And so I don't do, and I'll just admit this right now, I suck at maintaining relationships unless there can be a physical aspect to it.
Yep.
I don't have to see you every single day, but I have to know that I'm going to see you again and when that's going to be. So Mary, when I see her, I know when that's going to be. I know when she's coming. And usually right before she comes, I start getting excited. And right after she leaves, I'm still excited. But then I go kind of radio silent a little bit. And she does too, because neither one of us are really phone people.
Right.
To us, the quality time is being together. But my sister Alicia, who is closer to your age than mine, is different, right? And so she equates quality time through text messages and phone calls and all that other stuff. And I'm just like, okay, so she'll get upset with me if I don't spend enough time texting her. And I'm just like, okay, but I had nothing to say.
Right.
So what do you want me to do? Just be like, send you 3 dots?
Right.
Like, I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
So I've had to learn, kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier, bringing it down to the people's level and setting your communication style to your audience.
Yes.
I try to remember that that's what she needs from me. And so I tailor my communication to meet her needs.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get it right 100% of the time.
Absolutely.
But it shows that I'm trying and I'm thinking about who she is and what she needs rather than just going off and doing my own thing.
Yep. We have gone so far away from the topic.
This was not feedback. It was communication. That's what it was. And you know what else is throwing us off? The TV is still off. So I have no idea how long we've been talking. And I keep thinking, okay, we should probably wrap it up. But then in my head, I'm seeing a picture of the screen where it's, another topic will come in. But in my head, I'm like, oh, but we've probably only been talking for 20 minutes.
Nope. We are actually, I think, at an hour right now.
Sweet. Great. I wish you could turn the TV on so
we
could see.
I wish I could see it, but whatever. But on that note, this wasn't perfect.
But it is finished.
That's right.
The next episode, do we want to go ahead and talk a little bit about that? Because it'll be a little different.
It is going to be a little different. Yeah, on our next episode, it is going to be a guys only special. Yeah. So we're going to have...
you can watch if you're a girl.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that. What is the sign on the door?
No girls allowed.
No girls allowed. No, I'm gonna be talking with some of my male quilter friends, and we're gonna be talking about what it's like to be a male quilter.
And I think that is such a, I can't wait to hear it when it comes out. You and I have had wonderful conversations about this, but I'll tell you, like, being a friend of a male quilter who is in the LGBT community at that, like, you get treated differently. Sometimes it's positive or sometimes it's negative, but for the most part, women flock to you because they want you to be the token in their group.
Sometimes. So I'm excited for that conversation, and I hope everybody will join us on the next episode.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll just say, last week, when folks were, or a couple weeks ago or whatever it was, when people were like, we're here for Becca, not for Ian. Like, I just feel like I need to address this. I don't care. I don't care. You can be there every Friday night with me or not.
Yeah.
I don't really care. I understand spreading it out, whatever, because you got to have your own life too.
Yep.
And that's fine. But from my standpoint, I'm just going to go right back to the beginning, right? Like, those folks that don't like seeing us both together at the same time, then go somewhere else. You don't have to watch that video, right? Like, I know personally, because I work full time and I only get bite-sized chunks to sew and hang out with my friends and do YouTube, having you in my studio on Friday nights it checks the box for me in so many ways. I get to hang out with my friend. I get to sew, and I'm making YouTube content, and I'm not talking to 4 walls. I'm getting verbal responses and feedback. So, like, it's all of those things for me. And so for that reason, like, please know, I know that was a personal thing, and just going back to comments about you as a person and how they can feel a little hurtful or whatever. From where I'm standing, you're always welcome. And for that one comment, do you know how many hundreds of comments and emails I got that were like, we love Ian? Please. I actually got one email that was like, please bring him back. I was was like, oh my gosh.
Well, I definitely enjoy being there, but
Yeah.
we kind of overlapped a lot recently.
we
And I want to give you your space and allow you to have your space and everything. But don't worry, I'll definitely be.
You'll be back. You'll be back.
For sure.
You might skip a couple more Fridays, but I have a
for
feeling
sure.
when Mary's here, you're going to be right back in there with us. Like,
I'll
I'm
be there for sure.
It'll be the three amigos again.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. We've
Cool.
already told you that we were done,
Yep.
and then we continued talking.
It
So
happens.
I
need a pair of snips is what you need.
I've got like 3 threads.
You
on
do.
Here now.
You
I'm
do
like,
have
there's
a lot.
1, there's 2. They're turning into what is it, like dreadlocks when you turn twist and turn? That's what it looks like.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. On that note, I'm gonna go cut off my loose threads.
All right. Have fun with that. Bye,
All right,
everyone.
Bye.